The courtroom already knew who the villain was. He sat alone at the defense table. Wrinkled suit, hands folded, eyes tired, no family behind him, no friends. Across the room, his wife cried into a tissue, softly, perfectly. The jury watched her, not him. She trembled every time his name was spoken. She never once looked toward the defense table. And people whispered, monster, abuser, dangerous man. The prosecutor called her brave. The newspapers called her a survivor. The judge prepared to end the trial before lunch because the story seemed simple. A successful husband, a terrified wife, a violent night, broken glass, bruises photographed, neighbors who heard shouting, police arriving minutes later. He said nothing during arrest, nothing during questioning, nothing during trial. If stories about hidden truth and emotional injustice keep you thinking long after they end, subscribe to the Unheard Witness, because sometimes justice begins with the questions nobody wants asked. Silence looks like guilt when everyone wants a villain. Then the prosecutor stood. "Your Honor," he said, "the state rests." And the room relaxed. Case closed. Except the judge didn't reach for the gavel. He stared at the defendant instead. Longer than expected, like he was waiting for something. The man slowly lifted his head and whispered 5 words. "I didn't call the police." The courtroom barely heard it, but the judge did. The wife testified next. She walked carefully. Fragile steps, voice shaking. She described fear. Years of fear, screaming arguments, doors slammed, threats whispered behind closed walls. She cried at the right moments, paused perfectly. Even the jurors leaned closer. She said he threw a glass across the kitchen, said she fell, and said she thought she might die. Gasps filled the gallery. The prosecutor asked softly, "Why didn't you leave earlier?" Her answer came instantly. "I loved him." People nodded. Painful, believable, human. The defense attorney barely questioned her. Only 3 questions. Did he ever apologize? Yes. Did neighbors hear arguments before? Yes. Did she call the police that night? She hesitated. Only a second. Yes. The defense sat down. The jury watched the husband again. He looked smaller now, defeated, almost relieved. And that bothered the judge, because guilty men rarely look relieved before sentencing. Outside the courthouse during recess, reporters already prepared headlines. Domestic monster exposed. Justice for brave wife. Inside, and the defense attorney searched through files alone. Sweat on his forehead. Something didn't fit. Police reports said officers arrived at 10:42 p.m. Emergency call logged at 10:39. 3 minutes response time. Fast. Too fast. Unless patrol units were already nearby. He requested dispatch audio. The clerk frowned. "Case almost finished," she said. He insisted. The recording arrived minutes later. Static. Typing sounds. Then a dispatcher voice. 911, what is your emergency?" Silence answered. 10 seconds. 15. A faint sound. Glass breaking. Breathing. Heavy. But no woman speaking. No frightened voice. No request for help. Just movement. Then disconnection. The attorney froze, because the caller never spoke. So who called? Court resumed. The defense stood unexpectedly. "Your Honor," he said, "I request admission of dispatch audio." The prosecutor objected instantly. Irrelevant. Delay tactic. But curiosity spread through the courtroom. The judge allowed it. The speakers crackled. Everyone listened. Silence filled the room. Glass shattered faintly through static. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Male breathing. Not panicked. Not injured. Almost calm. The wife's face tightened, just slightly. The prosecutor stood again. Victims react differently under trauma. Reasonable, logical. The jury nodded again. Momentum returned, until the defense attorney asked quietly, "If you called police, why didn't you speak?" She swallowed. Shock flashed across her eyes. "I couldn't." The answer felt rehearsed, but still believable. The judge leaned back, uncertain, for the first time. Closing arguments began. The prosecutor painted certainty, bruises, witnesses, fear. Silence equals guilt. He asked jurors to protect victims, to send a message. The gallery applauded softly. The defense spoke briefly, too briefly. He talked about assumptions, about stories told before evidence finishes speaking. The jury looked bored. Verdict forms waited on their desks. Everyone prepared for guilty. Then the courtroom doors opened. Late. A bailiff whispered urgently to the judge. Annoyance crossed his face. Trials hate interruption. But the judge listened, eyes narrowing. Then he said words nobody expected. "Bring them in." A young police technician entered, carrying a laptop. Confusion spread instantly. The prosecutor protested. "Your Honor." The judge raised a hand. "There appears to be additional material." The technician plugged into courtroom screens. "Recovered this morning," he explained. "Apartment building security system." The defense attorney blinked. He hadn't known. Neither had prosecutors. The technician continued. "One camera was disconnected during initial evidence collection." Gasps. Someone whispered. "How?" He clicked play. Grainy hallway footage appeared. Timestamp. 10:34 p.m. 5 minutes before emergency call. The wife stepped out of the apartment, not injured, not frightened, calm. She closed the door quietly behind her, walked toward the stairwell, carrying her phone. The courtroom leaned forward as one body. She disappeared. Minutes passed on screen. Nothing happened. Yea, then another figure appeared. A man, tall, unknown. He unlocked the apartment door using a key, entered. 30 seconds later, glass breaking echoed faintly through the hallway microphone. The courtroom froze, because inside the apartment, someone staged the violence. Time stamp advanced. 10:39 p.m. The same stranger exited calmly, dialing a phone. Emergency call logged seconds later. The technician paused video. Silence crushed the room. The wife stopped breathing normally. Her hands shook. The prosecutor looked lost. The judge leaned forward slowly. "Explain," he said. Her chair scraped loudly as she stood. "I don't know him." Too fast. Too loud. The defense attorney spoke softly. "We ran facial recognition during recess." Another click. The stranger's face filled the screen. A corporate headshot beside it. Gasps erupted again. He worked for her family company. Security consultant. Former police officer. The defense continued. He received a payment transfer 2 days before the incident. Money records appeared. Large amount. From an account belonging to her father's estate. The courtroom turned toward her. Not gently. Hungry. She finally looked at her husband. For the first time. And he looked heartbroken. Not angry. That hurt worse. The judge ordered immediate questioning. Her story collapsed slowly. Then suddenly, she admitted debt. Massive debt. Hidden investments failing. Divorce would expose financial fraud she committed using joint accounts. She needed sympathy, needed leverage, needed custody of everything. The consultant staged the scene. She left early. He entered. Destroyed property. Called police anonymously. Bruises, self-inflicted days earlier. Practice runs. insurance claims planned next. The prosecutor sat down heavily. The jury, stared like betrayal itself, stood before them. The husband never moved. He just closed his eyes. Like exhaustion finally caught him. Charges reversed immediately. Case dismissed. New arrest ordered. The courtroom emptied in chaos, reporters shouting, cameras flashing. She cried again, but now nobody believed it. Later that evening, the husband remained alone in the empty courtroom, collecting papers, free but hollow. The judge approached quietly. "I almost sentenced you today." The man nodded. "I know." The judge hesitated. "One thing still bothers me." He looked confused. "On the security camera," the judge said, "it was disconnected during investigation, meaning evidence nearly disappeared." The technician later confirmed. Someone attempted remote deletion overnight, a final cleanup. If the building manager hadn't noticed storage errors, the footage would never exist. Justice sometimes survives by accident or luck. The judge asked gently, "Why didn't you defend yourself sooner?" The man stared at the witness stand. Long silence. "Because," he said quietly, "I thought she would stop before it went this far." He walked toward the doors, paused, turned once more. "She used to be kind." Then he left. Outside, cameras waited, questions shouted. He ignored them. Sunlight hit his face. Freedom felt strange, because innocence doesn't always celebrate, and sometimes it only survives. And somewhere inside, evidence storage. A forgotten security camera kept recording, waiting. For the moment, someone finally decided to look, because truth rarely screams. It waits patiently until someone presses play.